So a toast to the automatic toaster, and I actually have written a toast, and we'll do it at the end. Just hang in there, okay? National Toast Day. Who knew that this was a thing? It's not that old. This year it happens to fall on February 27th, and it's always the last Thursday in February. It all started in England. Apparently the British are really into toast, I've found out. 2014, so I guess this would be the 11th annual National Toast Day, but here in Stillwater, it's our first annual celebration. It was started by the Tiptree World Bread Awards, which is a great name, to promote toast and celebrate toast and all the delicious bread that we use to make it. So, yay, National Toast Day. People ask at the warden's house, how old is toast? And I say it's as old as bread and fire, which is pretty old, right? Humans have been eating bread for a very long time. Since ancient times. Some of the first evidence of bread is from at least 12,000 years ago. The Natufian people in the Fertile Crescent made flatbreads. Later, the Sumerians also made leavened breads with natural yeast, and they brewed beer too. Baking and brewing go hand in hand, turns out. The Egyptians, they are the ones who added the yeast to the bread, 3000 BC. There's evidence of that in tombs. There's evidence, like in some of the tombs, they would find little figurines of like bakers and kilns and people rolling the dough and things. So a really important part of life. And like I said, toast was all about food preservation, right? And before they had toasters, you would just put your bread on a rock by the fire, or use a stick to hold it by the fire. The Romans are the ones, they ate toast. They're the one, if you were wondering why do they call it a toast when you cheers somebody, it's really all because of the Romans. I won't drink out of your cup, Emily. I'm just using it. So the Greeks actually began the tradition of drinking to your health, right? Cheers. But they didn't call it a toast yet. It was the Romans who had bitter wine in their goblets, and they would crumple toast crumbs or dip their toast into the wine before they drank it. So the two things kind of evolved together, and so now we call this cheers thing a toast, thanks to the Romans. FYI, it wasn't the French who invented French toast, it was the Romans. Okay, like I said, toasting bread over a fire, a rock, a stick, these are a little more advanced tools. Just a simple fork to hold your bread in the fire, or the one with the handle with the slots. You could slide your bread into the fire. The two on this side are more to put on a stovetop, where you put your bread around, and these are all working with fire, nothing electric yet, right? And these are used from medieval times all the way up to pretty recently. In fact, people still use some of these things if you go camping or do any outdoorsy kinds of things. Electricity becomes available, right? Late 1800s. And the light bulb is invented quite a bit before toasters. The filament has to be different. For it to heat up and light up in the light bulb, that's one thing because it's in a vacuum. If you take away the vacuum of the light bulb, those same filaments burn up right away. And so they had to do a lot of experimenting with what kind of metal can we use that will heat up consistently, not get too hot, not get too cold. So it was a lot of trial and error. Albert Marsh was the man who created the alloy, or combining metals. He did nickel and chromium, and they called it nichrome, and this is 1905, and turns out that was the perfect combination for these filaments to heat up quickly and consistently. And so this was that first model of toaster that came out in 1910 that the lady showed in the video. And like she said, you put the two slices in and the middle heats up. Eventually you watch it, wait, And then you carefully pick it up and flip it around and put it back in there, and don't burn your fingers, and wait for it to be done just at the right moment. And then you unplug it. And I say unplug kind of loosely because if you notice these early models, it's not a plug. Most homes weren't wired for electricity, so you actually would take the light bulb out of your kitchen light and then screw that the other end of the toaster into it, right? It was. And like she said, electricity in the home really doesn't become a common thing until after the turn of the century. Okay. Like she demonstrated, between 1910 and the mid-20s, there were so many different kinds of models of toaster, including that really cool swinger one that she showed. And let me just kind of run down and show you a few. These are toasters from our collection at the Washington County Historical Society. This is the pre-electricity one, right? You put it on the burner of your wood-burning cook stove or by your fire. 4 slices of bread, you got to flip it. These two are both toasters as well. Pretty simple. You plug it in, you lay your bread on it, and you flip it, right? This guy, we can do 2 slices and the one heater in the middle. You have to kind of open it and flip it and put it back in carefully. Now this is a step up because, okay, you put your bread in and then you kind of lay it down and the bread flops over and kind of flips itself, and then you put it back up, right? And now this one is even cooler because they're connected. Ooh, right? This is probably my favorite one, right? Check out this action. You see? Yeah, so we're making improvements. We're not actually touching the bread anymore. It's kind of like that swinger one, not quite as cool. Same idea. Okay, so all of these are on the market until Charles Perkins Strite. And here's a great picture of him. He was from Iowa, and he worked. He was raised in Iowa, moved to Stillwater 1918 or 19, and here's where he worked. Now, just by the way, this is the warden's house, for those of my warden's house volunteers. This is the old Minnesota State Prison. This picture is taken right about 1919. So the prison is closed, but these buildings are still here, and you can see Twin City Forge and Foundry Company. It's right on the St. Croix River. It's kind of like by where the Minnesota Zephyr building, or what used to be the Zephyr building, is now. It was Northwest Thresher manufacturer. They made farm machinery until World War I. It was converted to a munitions factory where they made, guns and ammo and cannons and all kinds of supplies for World War I. Anyway, they had a cafeteria where they ate meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. This place ran 24 hours a day. Excuse me. And apparently the cafeteria had burned toast. You can imagine cooking in a cafeteria for lots of people. You can't be babysitting your toast. You put it in and you're doing all kinds of other things, and oops, burnt the toast. Well, he had enough of it and decided he was going to do something about it. Okay, and he did, which is great. So, 1919, he came up with the idea of the automatic electric toaster. And here's what's special about it. Instead of having one heating element with 2 slices of bread on either side that need flipping, he did 2 heating elements, and you put the bread in the middle, and it gets toasted on both sides, no turning. And then he did a timer. Let me show you. This is the earliest Toastmaster model by Charles Strite. Here was the big thing. You set your timer. It's adjustable. You want your toast dark or light, and then you put the plunger down. And now when the toast is done, you don't have to keep an eye on it. I can be frying my eggs or whatever. And when it's ready, the toast will pop up. And you just wait a second. Charles Strite is going to pop up out of the toaster. It's great. So he applied for the patent in 1919. It took 2 years, and the patent was granted on October 18th, 1921. And let me just pause to say, that's the same, he also died on October 18th, although not until I think 1957. There he is. But today, National Toast Day, February 27th, is actually his birthday. So happy birthday to Charles Strite today, too. So this really, really changed the culinary arts forever, right? Excuse me. And this is one of the earliest models. 1924, they started making those. And they were really geared for businesses first. These larger toasters weren't made for you to have in your house. They were exclusively made for hotels, restaurants, coffee shops, that kind of thing. You could make, some of them had 2 holes, 3 holes, 4 holes. They even made them up to 12. You could make 12 slices at once. This one in the middle, you see, you got like 3 rows of 4. And the 3 slice one, you might wonder, who wants 3 slices of bread? It was the club sandwich that made those popular. Okay, so when he first came up with this restaurant-style toaster, he got an exclusive contract with Child's restaurants. And nobody's heard of Child's anymore. It's been a while since it's not around, but 100 years ago, it was a really big deal. And this is a picture of the Child's restaurant in Philly. They were all over the country. Child's restaurants really pioneered the kind of cafeteria style dining where you get a tray and you move through the line and get your stuff. And they were very popular. It was called a national institution, and they served millions of people. Now get this. He sent out 125 Toastmaster toasters to all the Child's restaurants, and none of them worked right. They all had some kind of problem with them, and he said, all right, send them all back. And they did. And he fixed them all, figured out the problem, made the changes, and sent them all back again, and now they work like a charm. So I love how he never gave up. And this exclusive restaurant really got their foot in the door. And I found this matchbook from Child's Restaurant. Isn't that fun? I love how the shape of it, and on the back of it is the stack of pancakes. They don't make cool matchbooks like they used to. All the different businesses would have them, kind of a lost antique. So 2 years after the restaurant model is such a big hit, people are wanting this for their homes. And so this model comes along, the A1A in 1926. And it's very like Art Deco. You know, if a toaster can have an architectural style, this is really Art Deco. And I love, Toastmaster has some wonderful ads that I'm going to be sharing with you, right? For Christmas, free her forever from the worry of burnt toast. They right away get that good housekeeping seal of approval, right? So that's an awesome thing. You don't have to watch the Toastmaster. It gives instructions, right? No turning, no burning, that's their catchphrase, and it's a good one. When these first came on the market, people didn't know how to use them. What the heck is that thing? So they would do demonstrations at department stores like Dayton's and Donaldson's and that kind of thing, where somebody'd be toasting the toast, and you could come and watch it. And it was a pretty big deal, really the first totally automatic toaster. And considering all of the different kinds on the market, this is the one that really won out. And 100 years later, it's really the only one that people use. Some folks might have a toaster oven, but that's about it. Most of them are pop-up toasters. So, excuse me, these were made in Minneapolis to begin with, and these buildings are still there. Charles Strite met up with a couple of investors, a guy named Waters and a guy named Genters. They started the Waters Genters Company and started manufacturing the Toastmasters right there in Minneapolis. There's the address on 2nd Street North. It was a big hit. These toasters were selling by the millions. And the factory they were running 24 hours a day to keep up with production. I do, and it's in one of the slides coming up. It's quite a bit. It's amazing. These, at the time, I don't want to quote myself wrong, but they were a lot of money. It would be like a lot of money today, but people loved them, and they spent the money to have them. They're about the same. They're almost cheaper now than they were then, to be honest with you. Okay, so what goes good in a toaster? Sliced bread. Wouldn't you know, right about the same time in 1928, this guy, Otto Roeder from Iowa, invents the bread slicing machine. And that's quite a contraption. I'd love to see it working. I bet it kind of shook the room a little bit. The modern ones do still kind of shake the room if you've ever been around a bread slicer. But this is a huge innovation that makes toasting so much easier. It makes it so it becomes a real staple food and a simple food, an easy food that anybody can do. You don't have to slice the bread. You just pop it in there. Now, so Otto sold his bread slicing machine to the Clean Made or the Chillicothe Baking Company in Missouri. So they're technically the first company to sell sliced bread, the Clean Made bread. However, a couple years later, Wonder Bread lied and said that they were the first sliced bread. It was close. They really weren't, though. Right? Hey, does anybody know who is credited with the quote, "the greatest thing since sliced bread"? Anybody have a guess? You've all heard that, right? It's the greatest thing since sliced bread. Actually, it was Red Skelton said it in 1952, I believe. Somebody asked, he was doing an interview, and somebody asked, like, what about television? Don't you think it's maybe a bad thing, this TV? And he said, oh, don't worry about it. Television's great. It's the best thing since sliced bread. So now you know. It doesn't take long for them to start making improvements, right? 1930, that's only 4 years after the first models come out. And you can see it's a different model, right? A new and improved Toastmaster. I love this one. Toastmaster toast, 1,000 pieces of toast and every one alike. And they're starting to expand slowly. They mentioned the hospitality tray, and that's this here too. And oh, I wish we had one. If anybody's got an old Toastmaster hospitality tray you'd like to donate to the Historical Society, we'd love to have it. It's this whole tray with different compartments for your different snacks and things. Very, very fancy stuff, right? For entertaining. And you can see too, this is the first color ad. You know, in the 30s, the technology is changing with printing, and they're really able to come up with some pretty fancy ads. And now if you look, this is another different design still, just a few years later, right? From here to here. It's a little rounder and smoother. It's obviously toast is for breakfast, but you can have toast with your cocktails and your shrimp and deviled eggs and all that other fun stuff too. It's not just a morning thing anymore. What's that? That's right. It's not just for breakfast anymore. Cocktail hour. Don't you all have toast with your beverages? Okay. So during the Depression, the toast business, it doesn't have a problem. People are still, bread is affordable basically, and people get toasters, and it's one of the companies that survived the Depression pretty well. There's some recipes for kind of low budget meals like milk toast, which turns a piece of bread into like a hot, hearty meal. In the middle, you probably all recognize SOS. Do you know what that stands for? Something that starts with an S on a shingle, right? Um, Again, toast is for breakfast or dinner. And these are real money savers, right? Milk toast and SOS. Or if you're a fancy person and you eat caviar, you can have caviar and toast points. Just kind of goes to show you toast is for everybody. Rich or poor, we can fancy it up too with your caviar. So everybody loves toast. Okay, I love this ad from 1939. They're just so timely and on it with these ads. 1939 was a big movie year. A few off the top of my head were Gone with the Wind, The Wizard of Oz, and the great prison movie, Each Dawn I Die, which was a movie written by a former inmate at the Minnesota State Prison. I haven't seen it yet, but I know some of our volunteers have, and I want to really soon. Okay, anyway, in 1939, everybody loved movies and movie stars and Hollywood and celebrities and movie magazines. So I love, you see the paparazzi reflected in the toaster, and it's a 4-star hit. So they're relating toast to movies and movie stars. It's kind of a stretch, but doesn't it make you want a toaster? Right? I could be famous too, and all these people taking pictures of me. They really tried to appeal to everybody. All right. During World War II, again, they're sticking right with the times, and there's some patriotic ads. Let me just scooch over here. Allies for the most important job in the world. Up there's 2 good investments, a toaster and like war bonds. They're selling those in their ads too. I also want to point out now that the design has changed and they're doing that triple loop thing. Do you see right here? That was a real purposeful design that was meant to remind you of the coil spring like heating element inside, right? It's reminiscent of that anyway. And it's also supposed to distract your eye from any dents or dings or things that might appear on your toaster. If it was just a flat surface, you'd notice all the scratches. But here you don't. There's some other World War II things. You can't get a new toaster until the war is done. Much like the munitions plant in World War I, now we're in World War II, so all these manufacturing plants are making tanks and planes and all that kind of stuff. So keep it new, make it last, scrub up that toaster because you're not going to get a new one for a few years. And they even spell out Toastmaster. T, there are happier days ahead. O, once this war is over. And I'm not going to read them all, but it goes all down the line about keep your chin up. We're going to win this war, and we're going to get new toasters when it's all done. So hang in there, everybody. Right? And the one in the middle is a little, I guess pretty racist now, just to be honest. You've got your soldiers there, and then this kind of, I'm not going to talk too much about it, but you can just sort of look at it, and that's, again, they reflect the times, right? Okay. So the war is over, and we're making new Toastmasters again, and we've got a little bit of a new design, and we're really marketing it to the ladies, right? The new Toastmaster is here. You've waited long enough. Be sure it's a Toastmaster toaster, and be pleased with yourself for years, right? And they're adding new features here, like the crumb tray, right? Fancy. And this one actually is this model. Let me just pick it up and show you. And this is probably the fanciest of all of them because there's not a plunger, right? It's like an automatic elevator kind of. You put your bread in and push the button and it lowers it. And then when it's done, it kind of power elevators it back up. So this was really top of the line stuff at the time. This will pop up in just a minute too. Okay. So everybody's getting married after World War II, and the Toastmaster is the ultimate wedding gift. Did anybody here get a toaster for a wedding gift, a Toastmaster? Yeah, I think I have too. And I love how they always do this motif of what's reflected in the toaster, right? The wedding ring and the happy, happy bride. And the mother of the bride, there's some other jealous women like, oh my God, they sent the Toastmaster toaster. Don't they just look so thrilled? And this one too, I want to point out, this is about when they start adding all these little toastimonials in their ads, which are kind of hilarious. They're like these little fictional little snippets of stories of why they love the toast and how their toaster is so awesome. Our Toastmaster was a wedding gift 8 years ago. It's still as bright as new and has been popping up wonderful toast nearly every day for all these years. Thank you for such perfection. Thank you for so much perfection. This is from Eleanor and Albert Jackson of Duluth, Minnesota, with a toastimonial. I wonder if they're real people. We should really research and find out if they're just made up people or not. Anyway, like I said, they've got a great ad campaign through the years. They did a great job because everybody had a Toastmaster. Okay, so a great wedding gift, a great Christmas gift. Every year for the holidays, consistently, they're advertising the Toastmaster, whether just the toaster alone or the toast and jam set or any of these fancy trays. Look, you can see this has got the jam set. That's got the tray for the deviled eggs and everything. So we're dealing with more than just simple toasters by this time, I guess. And I like the one on the left. You notice on the top, it's for a lucky lady. Because boys don't make toast, right? By now, the company has moved to Chicago, actually Elgin, Illinois. And they're purchased by a different company called the McGraw Electric Company. And they expand production, is why they moved to Chicago. Oops, I already told you about the loops and the improvements made on the advertising. But as you can see, this is America's most sought after toaster. And now we're getting into other kitchen appliances, right? Not just the trays and the jellies, but now, we've got a coffee pot and an iron and this automatic fry pan, which you plug in. You don't put it on the stove top, that plugs in as well. And again, the marriage, look at the happy couple. To wish her the best, give her the best, right? There's all kinds of shaming the husbands of America. You better get this toaster for your wife. You know what's good for you. Yeah, more family friends from the Toastmaster. And a few more different products, right? I love this one. If you lead 2 lives, and these remarkable Toastmaster appliances will serve you well in both your roles, the waffle iron and the toaster. Hot water heaters. I guess, right? You're dealing with heating coils and elements. You can make a hot water heater out of that. I mean, that makes sense, I guess. Can openers. Yeah, this was a lot of money at the time. It really was. So they are really kind of cornering the market on all kinds of kitchen-y and not so kitchen-y appliances out there. The baby boom, of course, follows the marriage boom. So now our ads are starting to include children and the family, right? oh boy, toast and jam. Look at this kid can smell it from out in the yard, and he's so excited to come in and have his snack. And this one is real 50s. It's like a TV tray, right? So the tray isn't just a tabletop fancy tray. Now it's got the legs that pop out because everybody eats toast in the living room in front of the TV now, like your TV trays. So, like I said, we're moving along with the times. This crazy thing, this is 1966. And I've never actually seen one of these or heard one of these, so I suspect that it maybe didn't last long. I can't imagine why. You flip the thing, flip it. You boil a steak with the heating element on the top, I'm guessing. And then you flip it, and you can bake a pie because the heating element's on the bottom. Now, this doesn't seem terribly practical or safe. I love the ad, though. It's got that flip kind of action in it. Did anybody ever have one of these or ever seen one? Yeah, like I said, I don't suppose they were around for too long because I've never heard of it. But crazy, right? And by the 70s, yeah, right, for you to hold with your wife. Now these all look very 70s. You can see some of those 70s motifs, right? The daisies, the flowers, kind of hippie thing. And we've got a mixer here and a griddle, and they're holding hands. Give her a helping handle toaster or any other helpful gift from Toastmaster. Again, we're still sticking with the buy this for your bride. But it's a little more kind of risque, right? You see these two, and they're right. They're different from those 40s and 50s kind of prim and proper wedding and marriage ads. They're kind of changing with the times, like I said. Better than mistletoe. Ooh, you know what that implies. I know. Okay. And in the 80s, Toastmaster is still kicking. And again, we've got some new products, including this one, which I'm totally jealous of. I didn't have a griddle, but I wish I did. Doesn't that look awesome? It had like these little kind of cookie cutter things that you'd put on the griddle, and then you'd pour your pancake batter or put your egg in there so you can have dinosaur waffles and teddy bear eggs. Did anybody here have a griddle? Do you have the shape? Well, you could probably do it with any old cookie cutter too. The Toastmaster makes the kind of gifts you just don't like to part with. So they're locked up with the chain and the padlock, like you do, like one does with their kitchen appliances, right? But amazing, at this point, we're 60 years in to the Toastmaster company, and they're still going strong. In 1980, the Toastmaster brand gets sold to a company, Magic Chef. And that's when this ad comes from. And this is pretty sleek, pretty 1980s looking. Pretty much the same products, except I see like a hot plate kind of thing with the burners on it. So like I said, they're kind of always adding more and more. And I'm not sure who did this awesome drawing of Charles Strite eating toast, but I just stole it off the internet. I don't even know who to give credit to, but enjoy. It's very nice. It's like a convection oven kind of thing, I think. Oh, maybe it is. It's a turkey and it's on a wire rack. It's a convection oven. Yeah. Actually, it says, our name speaks for itself. That one says, I'm an oven that convection cooks and bakes, broils, slow cooks, and even dehydrates. And the other one says, I'm a waffle iron. I'm a griddle. I'm a toaster whose slots adjust to whatever you're toasting. Very flexible and accommodating for kitchen appliances. Okay, still toasting. So there, you can still buy Toastmaster toasters, by the way. The company went public in 1992 and then was acquired by another company called Sultan Incorporated in 1999. Now, the company is owned by Spectrum Incorporated, which is a huge, like, multinational company that sells everything from like dog food to yard gardening things and home appliances and like makeup and curling irons and shampoo and all kinds of, and toasters and Toastmaster products. So they're still holding on to that brand name, but they're now owned by this huge company. Okay. Back to Charles Strite, that good old guy. He is in the Minnesota Inventors Hall of Fame. And let me just say that the toaster was not the only thing that Charles Strite invented. I know that his first invention, before the toaster, was a geared pulley system. And it's kind of an awful story. He worked at a meatpacking plant in Illinois right about the turn of the century and was on the third floor. They were hauling salt from the ground up to the top, and there was a big pulley system with belts that ran and hauled this stuff up. And he was on the top floor and witnessed something happened, and there was slack in the belt that slipped off the pulley and flapped around the room and caught one of his co-workers by the overall strap and killed him. Pulled him into the pulleys, and he watched him get mutilated and killed right in front of his eyes. Horrible. So, but good old Charles Strite said, I've got to do something so that this never happens again. And so the pulleys, he did like a graduated gear kind of pulley. Think of like a bike chain, you know, how you can shift the gears so that it wouldn't get slack in it. And it was like a safety mechanism. A pretty big deal and probably saved countless lives. So that was his first invention. So I think after that horrible scene and problem to solve, he was probably like, burnt toast, like that's easy, right? So he has a few other inventions too. So one of the really cool things that I found out is about the toaster, right? This picture, it says, welcome to the toaster. And the Toaster Innovation Hub is 6,500 square feet of adaptive workspace designed to foster creativity, innovative thinking, and entrepreneurship. And this is at the University of Minnesota. It's only a couple years old. It's in the basement of one of the like computer science and engineering buildings. I think that's really cool that they're still using the same idea and hoping some great things pop up. Okay, so here we go. Back to your question from the very beginning. Toaster prices have come down. Today's toast, I looked online, you can get a Toastmaster toaster for $23.93. In 1926, the home model was $12.50. In today's money, $230. I don't think I would pay that kind of money for a toaster, especially in those days when it was such a brand new thing. It just goes to show you that they were so popular and people were really willing to save up to get this toaster. Kind of a big deal, right? And that was for the home model. This is the one that was $12.50. If you wanted one of these restaurant ones, these cost more like $80, $100, depending on how many slots were in it. That was a huge investment for a restaurant to make, like over $1,000 to spend on a piece of equipment. But people did. Okay, a couple random toast notes to finish up, and then we'll eat more toast, okay? This is the world's largest toast mosaic. And can I just say, world records and things related to toast, they're all old, like 2010, 2015. I think that we're ripe for a new toast world record. So if anybody has any ideas, talk to me afterwards. Maybe next year we can do something fun. How many, the most fuses blown at a toaster event, maybe, right? Anyway, this is the world's largest toast mosaic, 32 by 42 feet. It's huge. This lady is, again, England. Those Brits are wild about toast. 600 loaves of bread, 9,000 and some slices. She got 40 of her friends to man 9 toasters. And 7 hours later, all the toasts of different colors were arranged to make this lovely mosaic by artist Laura Hadland. And that picture is a photograph of her mother-in-law, of all things. That's an odd choice for your toast mosaic, Laura, but all right. Isn't that fun? This is the, not on the bottom, but on the top there is the world's largest, fully functional toaster. It's 6 feet long and 34 slots. And I bet that would blow a fuse. Right? Yeah, we don't want to use that one. Okay, a couple more toast facts. The largest collection of toasters is owned by Kenneth Huggins, 1,284 toasters. We've got a few here, but not quite that many. And get this one, I love it. The highest popping toaster. This is some high school kid. It must have been for some project at school. Rigged up a toaster to pop the toast up 4.5 meters. That's like 13, 14 feet into the air. The toast pops up. I tried to find a video of it and I couldn't, but I do know that they called it the Moster, which is pretty darn cute, I think. So, one, and I had to do one more ad. I'm sorry. It can't happen here. The Toastmaster toaster. So, one more quick thank you to our sponsors, and then I'm going to read to you our toast to toast. So, if you have a drink, you can raise it to toast or some bread. And here's to Charles Strite, guys. Of all the things that I love the most, of all those things, I love toast. Charles Perkins Strite couldn't get his toast right. A munitions boy on the St. Croix, he worked day and night through a World War fight. In 1919, they say, there was burned toast every day. And then an idea popped into his head. No more of this, he said. The spring is the thing. Then cut off the current. And never again shall our toast be burnt. Yay!